Hello! Hello! And welcome to Sim.bc. Didn't even wave and I got tea on the ground. You know what? Let's retake that one. Yeah, let's do that. I have the power, right? Oh, there's tea everywhere. Shit. Hello! And welcome to Sim.bc. Just imagine that a few seconds ago for you, a few minutes ago for me after cleaning up quite a lot of tea didn't actually happen. Got to wave in and all of that. I'm joining you from a casual 10 past 2 in the morning. Yeah, I thought we could hold 10 past 1. Turns out didn't really work with this schedule quite as today. Now, to begin with, before we get into today's entire subject, which will be a bit, I'm saying dark, it's probably not going to be dark in the same way that yesterday tended to be dark, but it's not going to be the funniest video to do either, I imagine. But before we get into that, I would just like to point out that I'm such a boring person that sometimes, right, I do not only watch debates and political debates, I also watch debates that has already happened. Yeah, I know. I'm up to date, I'm current, I'm happy, I'm lit, right? That's what the kids say. Anyway, so I was watching a couple of argumentations, let's say, some discussions on gay marriage from like, what, 2010, 2012, something like that. And I thought it was so funny, and obviously I'm calling it old news, because if you don't believe that gay marriage should be a thing, then you're obviously quite thick, aren't you? You're basically an idiot, and I'm not using that term lightly, idiot, but you are if you don't believe that two people can get married, you bloody piece of shit. Anyway, I have quite strong opinions about that, if nobody knew. So I believe it's okay, to say the least, right? It's obvious, isn't it? But it's kind of funny because I saw these people were saying that, 4 years or 6 years or 8 years, 10 years down the line, people would think it's ludicrous. If we accept gay marriage, then people will be starting marrying men, or women, because that's so much more comfortable, and heterosexual marriage will be dying out and nobody will do it anymore. And I'm just like, so that didn't happen? One big surprise! It's not like you actually can choose your sexuality. Well, you're open to choose it, but technically you don't choose it, you just express it. I think I've been talking about that before. Anyway, something I thought was really funny about it as well was that when they were doing surveys in order to prove their point, they were kind of saying to people in the survey, the questions were kind of framed like this. So, do you think that heterosexual marriage is okay? And people are like, yeah. And then it was like, would you be able to consider a homosexual marriage to be taking place in church, even though it might go against the tradition? And obviously, phrasing it like that, a bit biased if I do say so myself, but in this particular case, I just thought, wouldn't it be better to go out and ask, instead of asking about heterosexual and homosexual, just be asking, is it okay for two people to get married in church? Or wherever you want to be married, right? But is it okay for two people to get married? And if people said yes, then you're probably in favor of both heterosexual and homosexual marriage and all the combinations in between, whatever. Because last I checked, heterosexual people and homosexual people were people. I know, mind-blowing, isn't it? And if they were saying no, you could be like, oh, so you don't agree with marriage. That's also tooth and fresh. I mean, religion has its place and all, but not everybody needs to be intertwined with it. I totally agree. That's just one man's opinion, right? You're entitled to have your own, especially in this modern day. Not your opinion, that should always be constant, but that we might not actually need religion, even though it's a society-supporting pillar. But it's my opinion, let's move forward, right? But I thought it was kind of funny that they didn't just ask that, because if people were going to be like, oh no, I retract, I don't think it's okay for two people to get married, if they're of the same sex, you're just like, you homophobe piece of shit. Get out of the country, please. Yeah, it's just mind-boggling to me that was even a discussion to begin with. And to continue down that line, and that train of thought, it's stupid and weird that it was a discussion to begin with. Well, strap on, strap in, whatever you say, because you're going to be in for a ride if you enjoy that, because today, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to talk about all the projects that I have already decided ain't going to happen, yeah? They might, but they most likely will not happen. I have one project that I think I will execute, but many more will probably not take place due to time restrictions and the amount of research that I need to put into the video in order to make it at least semi-professional, right? So that I have at least a sort of educated opinion about what I'm talking about. Not that had driven me before, but I thought, the topics that I want to take up, they probably need them. Now, the first one is racism. I really wanted to do a racism project, right? The only problem with doing a racist project in a couple of videos is that there is no real debate and no real discussion to be had now, is it? The best way you can do it is being like, oh, racism can go both ways, and that's sort of semi-interesting. I think it's really interesting, right? But it still needs a lot of research because it's going against the consensus and the common view. However, if we just look at racism as it is, racism, you know, you can't really argue for that racism is it good or is it bad? It's obviously bad. So there's not much ground to stand on when doing that sort of project, right? It's not like I can have 4 or 5 videos going over about is racism good, is racism bad, and then in the end of the week I'm like, yeah, so it's bad. I think we all kind of figured it was bad. And the same goes for the other one that I had planned. I'm saying I had planned, I had in mind. And that is sexism. Yeah, it goes brilliantly together with racism because it has sort of the same problem. Now, you could take the interesting point of view that, oh, sexism goes both ways. Obviously it does. Unfortunately, rather, I'd say that sexism does exist, but it does goes both ways. Both to men and women and binary and all of the other combinations in between. That's totally fine, by the way, that you could be a combination in between, but, you know, due to technicality reasons, I will just say that, so I hope you don't get offended if I didn't explicitly say it. Now, sexism has the same problem as racism in the sense that I can make like 15, 100, 20,000 videos, or even just the one or the two, where I am discussing, is sexism good or is sexism bad? And I will probably be of the agreement that, oh, you know, sexism wasn't that good. Turns out sexism is pretty bad. And I would imagine, right, that most people would have come to that conclusion within the first, let's say, 5 seconds of the video loading before they actually saw it and there perhaps was an advertisement before, right? In that glorious moment when I might be able to advertise. I know, it sounds like I'm all in about the money, right? But it's not the case, it's the experience. Now, let's see if this works. Still too hot though. At least I don't have tea anywhere. Oh, I dropped the well, just a little. Anyway, I'm mumbling about. But basically what I'm saying is, right, that sexism would be very hard to make a project about. You could raise awareness about it, I guess. Could do the same for racism, really. Could raise awareness through making different videos, try to market them, even though my marketing strategy is hiding everything I have from me mates. Or at least most of me mates, because that's a solid marketing strategy for a channel now, isn't it? No, it's not. It's bloody not. But the problem yet again, right, is that I can take up these two very interesting perspectives and these very prominent and huge problems of society, and I can talk about them for several videos. But the problem is, yet again, I'm probably gonna come down on the side of that, yeah, this was bad, both of them, and they're kind of similar, running the same themes. And in order to provide a perspective that is different, I need to dig deep. Because obviously you can go shallow as well and be like, oh, this person didn't like women, or this person didn't like men, this person didn't like blacks, or that person didn't like whites, or whatever, right? But how far are we really going there? Not really that far. And when it comes to complex issues like these, you probably need to take up, well, historical evidence, and you need to take in the consensus, the common consensus. What sort of nationality are we talking about? What is the situation in neighboring countries? Which continent are we on? Where in the climate are we? Is there any refugees? What's the percentage of refugees and people who actually work here? What's the percentage of men and women coming here, or non-binary for that matter? You know, there's so many aspects to take into consideration, and many of you might be out there and be like, obviously, that's amazing, because you can do a video about each and every one of them. But still, we're coming back to the main issue that, yeah, we're gonna come to the conclusion that sexism and racism is pretty bad, isn't it? Yes. Could be fun to combat the idea, though, that, no, I ain't even gonna go into that, because that's a very controversial and probably wrong opinion to have. Not that any opinion could technically be wrong in itself, it's the action of what you take that makes it really bad, or how you choose to present it, now wouldn't it? And the idea that you can't really hold, or that you hold that opinion no matter what you are presented with, which is also pretty stupid. So I ain't even gonna go into the point that I was thinking about making, because it's stupid, right? So let's just leave it at that. Funny though, when people say that, most people are like, oh, but I do want to hear it. And I just remember I actually made a video about it already. Okay, so the thing I wanted to take up was the idea that, oh, you know, some women said, for instance, in the Jordan B. Peterson interview with Channel 4, there was a woman who was interviewing him, and she was like taking up the point that, should I as a woman need to compete with all of these men and all of these people in the workplace in order to get my position, in order to be where I am today? Should I need to be fighting for it? And obviously, yeah, not because you're a woman, but also because you are, you know, I mean, you should need to fight for your position because you're a man and a woman, not because you're a man and a woman. You see the difference? No, it's really harsh. It's better presented in the other video that I made about it. You can probably go and watch that instead. It's a highly controversial one. I mean, I imagine that if there is any video where I will be clipped having a very fanatic opinion, it's probably from that one. Or this one. No, probably the other one. It's just that you take up so controversial topics. That's also a reason for why I'm choosing to drop it, because I can imagine, right, someone coming in for the third video where I'm trying to present a counter argument to what I believe is right. I will probably start off doing the introduction, being like, this is my opinion about the matter so far. Sexism and racism is pretty bad. And then after a while, I will be doing like 1 or 2 videos where I'm saying, oh yeah, it's bad. This is why it's bad. This is how it's implemented in society. These are the repercussions it has on society. These are the theoretical implications. Here is some historical evidence. This is what it's done. This is the perception today. And then for the 3rd or 4th video or something like that, doesn't really matter. It's just a number. You can play around with it. After X amount of videos, I will probably take up the counter argument and say, why is racism good? Why is sexism good? Just to get the perspective in there so that we can be able to shut it down, right? But many people can be viewing that in isolation, and that is really dangerous. Because then a video of me can be circulating on the internet where I'm trying to apply for a job, right? Where I'm standing and saying, you know, this with racism, it ain't that big of a deal. I mean, out with all of them who's coming here. Am I right? Refugees, what a joke. That's just propaganda from the government to keep them in there, them bastards, right? Or if I do some sexism, being like, oh man, am I right? Those twats, or just women or something like that. And I can just imagine how horrible it would be, especially out of context, which most people tend to take a lot of content on YouTube. Just take PewDiePie for that matter, with the adpocalypse a few years back. People don't seem to like context, no matter how important it is. So that is also a reason for why I choose to drop it even before I've done it. Now I might take up some aspects of it that I deem to be really interesting in the limited amount of days that we do have left, but we'll see, Ain't gonna say never, but a huge project about it is probably not going to unfold, even though I kind of wanted to go down that route, if not for no other reason to raise awareness about it, right? Because it could be good. Raise awareness about that sexism and racism, it's a problem and we need to accept it, acknowledge it and deal with it, but I believe the drawbacks and the amount of time can probably be spent in a better way. So, mates, that was everything for today. Have a bloody nice one, and I'll see you tomorrow. And I promise you, there will be coming a project of sorts pretty soon. And I'm not just talking about the music project that is running on Sundays. No, there will also be another one. Quite soon, actually, I believe. Ain't gonna promise too much, but it's gonna come. It's gonna be there. Have a nice one, mates. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye.